in his K-punk writings on in an article titled "Contributing to Society," Mark Fisher wrote, quote, "There wasn't much difference between what I did when I was on an average day when I was a student and what I did when I was unemployed. And there isn't a great deal of difference between what I was doing then and what I do now," unquote. And so I was writing this down in notes for stuff regarding Tomorrow's Different, but it's still the same. It's similar to the idea of being similar to a chicken going around in circles after getting decapitated. And I guess that's to say, humans don't exactly repeat the past per se. They remember it. They rather repeat themselves in circular ruts, almost like Stockholm Syndrome. You know, like, for example, today is April 11th, and I'm doing a bit similar to what I did last year today. Only difference is that I don't have a job right now, which I'm fine with, you know. But it's like, I went to school and I researched, I taught myself how to write and do all this shit, and then it's like, you know, what I do remains relatively repetitive, even though I can change the window dressings. But it's not like what I do is all that terribly repetitive either, because it's like, you know, I enjoy writing. I enjoy fucking around and finding out, in a sense. And it's like, you know, I mean, I got this lighter right here. I got this last year today. I got it last year today. And it's like, maybe there is something to the ruts that isn't great, because, you know, it's like, basically what today is a recontextualization of it all, because, you know, it's, quote, "Buckshot glitter perfume is something you never want to wear, and your hair will be brains, and this shit won't be the same," unquote, which Marilyn Manson sung in a song called Perfume. A descriptive image which I think encapsulates the sort of minded moments in the last year or so. I mean, nonetheless, nothing lasts. You know, I mean, I still have the lighter from whenever I quickly rushed out in the morning last year today, but it's like, usually I, you know, unthinkingly do this and toy with a lighter, and it drains the fluid quickly, but this one still has a surprising amount of fluid. I guess, I mean, I didn't really fuck around with it as much since, but, you know, it's what it is. Well, not really, but anyway, it's like, I guess it kind of connects to what I'm thinking about in regards to tragedy and all that stuff. And so I was listening to this Jordan Peterson lecture called Tragedy versus Evil, and he expressed an idea that I find to be very interesting regarding human existence, and I guess I'll quote it, because it's two parts. The first, quote, "Without limitation there is no being," and the second being, quote, "In the absence of constraint, there can be no choice of freedom, no existence," unquote. And, you know, on a historical level, that seems a completely rational posit to make. Constraint via race and war led to the development of nuclear technology, just as a prime example. However, then that makes me think of two things. The first being that of a line sung by Tim Skold in his song Tonight, quote, "You suffer for the artist, not for the art," unquote, which was one of my favorite songs last year this time. Anyway, quite interesting how that works, considering the lyrical content besides what I quoted there. Anyway, the second thing I find interesting is that of what an online content creator emphasizes, or, you know, his exclamation being a belief that one should intentionally wreck their well-being, namely mental health, for such artistic purposes. And I have to wonder then how that truly works, as from given information, the declaring individual is only slightly different from myself. You know, he's a self-isolated, cynically cautious, and anxiously avoidant with knack for taking in extreme amounts of data and being well-versed philosophically. But what I would say differentiates us is the differentiating factor, even in its similarity, is he seems to openly do as Emile Cioran explained in his book A Short History of Decay or whatever, in searching for a better string of verbiage to vocalize the issues that he has. I just happened to switch basements. He refutes pay for posts. What's really the difference? I mean, probably much, given he is a random online, but, I do wonder, as he seems to have popped off rather recently, and in a way, it seems very odd with how people like that just pop off, but, it could be natural, but at the same time, it's like, it seems a bit similar to how Lex Friedman suddenly just sprung up out of nowhere into the podcast sphere and overnight joined the ranks of Joe Rogan. It's just odd. Though maybe I'm overthinking that with cynicism, but it would not be very surprising or out of such character. But all of it in regards to limitation, then, to my mind, is the idea, like, if I suddenly had more money than I ever needed to live, I'd probably die sooner rather than later than I want to. As strange as that is to actually consider and say or write, I do have the biological urge to live as a major part of things. And, aging is just curious at this point. I just find it curious. Like, it's like, I turned 20 in March. That doesn't mean much to me. But it's fascinating that it does mean something at the same time, because it's like, that's fascinating. Like, I had no idea where I'd be right here a year ago, or even 6 months ago. So, yeah, aging is kind of crazy. But, in terms of recontextualization, I guess I'll quote, "My blood runs cold, yeah, my memory has just been sold, my angel is the centerfold," unquote. The J. Geils band, Centerfold. And maybe it's a bit more mentally ceremonial of a cold real, because with the quote, it embodies the memory of a cold realization, then superseded as memory adds more into it. Done is done, and, sometimes dead is better, as Stephen King once wrote, a whole book enunciating, whatever one might want to interpret that to mean. Genuine death or interpersonal. Anyway, I guess memory is kind of like it's kind of like a glass picture frame. It sits and then it can either shatter or it can just get bleached by the sun, and then it's not this scattering and cracking monolith. It's just a window. Or whatever. But, anyway. Yeah.